Disconnected.
It is, and how it's used in everyday world and life. Joining me today is Ian Anderson, certified hypnotherapist, master imagery facilitator,
Powering off.
shaman practitioner. Ian, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so he's going to join us today and talk a little bit about shamanism, how it's used in our civilization, our world, and how Ian is using it to make the world a better place. So again, welcome, and we're going to go ahead and let somebody just come in here. There we go. And Ian, take it away.
Okay, so first of all, thank you everybody for being here. Thanks for joining us and being interested in shamanism. It's something that is not real common in our modern culture for many different reasons. Some of them we'll cover. But the first thing I'd like to do is just go into a little bit of a story about shamanic initiation and how my shamanic initiation didn't start, but how I was called to action through shamanic initiation. I have a long history of studying shamanism, but you're not a shaman or a shamanic practitioner until you practice shamanism. So the call that I had to actually put it into practice was a dream, and it went like this. So there I am, I'm in a house, sitting on the floor by myself. I think I'm meditating, maybe dreaming, a waking dream, some kind of visions going on in my mind, and I hear a voice inside my head. It asks me if I'm watching the rapid moon. So I ask myself, the rapid moon, that sounds like something going on outside. So I get up and I go outside, out onto a deck, and I look out and I see out in front of me, out as far as I can see off into the distance, a plain of grass, a forest off in the distance ringing the plain. So I'm surrounded by trees way off in the distance, but coming across the plain, I see a procession of animals. A tiger, a chimpanzee, a hippopotamus, a gorilla, a bear, all coming toward me, looking at me as if they expect something from me or as if they had something to communicate to me. So I'm watching them come by, and they all walk by one at a time, walking past me, and as they do, they make eye contact and continue on out into the plain where each one of them picks a spot to sit. And they sit and they look at me, and they look at me and they look at the sky, and the chimpanzee points up into the sky, pointing up where the moon should be. And when I look up, I don't see the moon that I expect, but I see a moon moving fast across the sky in quick arcs, like up and down, rising, setting. And every time it rises, it comes up in a slightly different phase. So as it moves quickly across the sky, it's shifting from crescent to a half to a full, crescent, half, full. As it gets to the point where it becomes full, then it starts to wane and get smaller and smaller every time it rises and sets. So it comes up and it goes down, eventually to the point where it sets completely and the sky goes dark. As it goes dark, the stars start to glow in the sky. If anybody's ever been in the desert or maybe out in the forest in a clearing sometime when there's no moon in the sky, you know how bright the stars and the Milky Way can be when you can really see all the millions and millions of stars shining up there in the sky. And I'm there and I'm looking at these stars, and I feel this creative energy in the universe looking down on me as I'm looking up at it. And if anybody knows anything about how the Hubble Space Telescope works, when they're looking way back in time at the most distant galaxies, they focus it on the darkest spots of the sky so that they can gather the most light without being interfered with by the light of the stars. So as I'm looking and I see these animals pointing up at the sky and looking at me, I notice that the spaces between the stars are starting to glow and the stars are starting to fade, and the stars fade to darkness and the spaces between them start to glow. And then I see all the different nebulas, and the Cat's Eye Nebula, the God's Eye Nebula, the Ring Nebula, the Horse Nebula, all these different nebulas that we've seen in distant gas clouds and solar systems that are way off in the distant space start to glow and they glow with all the brilliant colors that we see in these telescopes, and most of the images that we see from these telescope images are artificially colored with ultraviolet and with infrared wavelengths that they pick up with these telescopes. But I'm seeing it all. I'm seeing all the different wavelengths, and they start to glow, and they start to focus their energy down on me, and I'm seeing them, and I'm realizing that I'm looking way back billions of years into the past, and I'm seeing the most distant, earliest galaxies forming. And I see them glowing red, and I see even beyond that to the cloud of hydrogen that started to collect into little pockets of matter in the beginning of the universe, after the universe came into creation. And then I see even beyond that to the point where it all was in one space and in one consciousness, all of it collected into a non-space of some kind. And so when I get to that point, there's a flash, and all these beautiful, unbelievably complex nebulas that are and distant galaxies that are in the sky, they flash, and all the matter and energy and potential in those objects is funneled down into the center of this plane in front of me, into a little mound. And when this happens, the chimpanzee that's been focusing on me starts pounding the ground like they do when they get really excited, with a big grin on his face. He's pounding the ground thinking something big is going to come, which tells me something big is about to happen. So as I'm watching it, there's a flash from out of the earth. From out of the earth comes all that energy, all that matter, and it reproduces a small holographic version of the universe that spreads out across the plane before me. So when it spreads out, and I see the entire evolution of the universe from the very beginning, through time, through the collection of the original gas cloud of hydrogen into stars, and those stars collecting into galaxies, and those galaxies collecting into groups of galaxies, and then the forces that they give off with the gravity and the electromagnetism that reaches out and touches every other star and every other galaxy, connecting everything in the universe through physical forces. But then I also see and experience the consciousness that was part of that creation that spreads out and connects all things in the universe as well. And as this plays out in front of me on the plane, there's suddenly another flash, and I see all of this, I feel all this energy, all this creative potential start to coalesce, and like a laser focuses right into my third eye, and all of it just like that, boom, into my third eye, which causes a reaction in my body. I go into a state of ecstasy, hit the ground like a ton of bricks, and start shaking, convulsing on the ground. My jaw clenches. I have tears pouring out of my eyes, and although it would normally, or you'd think it would be a painful experience, it actually was what you would maybe hear some people talk about, a full Kundalini release, the feeling as if every atom in my body was vibrating to a point where my physical body was about to explode. And I'm convulsing, and I'm feeling all this creative energy running through me, this power to create with consciousness and with the ability to bring our thoughts into reality.
So we wait to get him back up. Here he is.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was just saying that's really fascinating. And so, were you conscious in this state during this time, like just very like even not believing that this was even happening to you? What's going on through your mind at that time?
I was in a state of total amazement. Yeah, I was in a state of total amazement. If anybody's ever experienced that kind of state of wonder, you're in a place where you don't really have much time or even opportunity to think about what's going on. I was just experiencing it, convulsing on the ground while these tears were flowing out of my eyes, feeling that creative energy going through me. Well, suddenly, as this is happening, it's like boom, and I wake up in my bed. And when I wake up in my bed, normally when you wake up from a dream, you wake up and the dream's over. But when I had woken up from this dream, I could still feel that power going through my body. My whole body was vibrating, and my eyes were full of tears. I was on my back, and when I woke up, my eyes were full of fluid. So when I sat up, tears just poured down my face, and I felt that energy going through me. And actually, that feeling lasted for a really long time. I remember every second of the dream. I remember every second of the experience, and part of the point behind this dream and behind telling the story is that the power to heal, the ability to heal, the ability to journey, to leave your body, to travel into other worlds, which is what a shaman does, is given to us, is gifted to us in the form of shamanic power, which comes from the spirits, the spirit world, which comes from universal spirit, the creative force in the universe, and we get that gift through the process of initiation. And you know what a shaman really is a person who has the ability and the desire to alleviate suffering, to alleviate ignorance in the world through the practice of going into other worlds, the spirit worlds, or bridging the gap between the physical world and the spirit worlds. And yeah, a messenger.
Sort of a messenger.
Yeah, if you wanted to relate it to something that is more modern, you could relate it to the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell wrote about. The hero experiences a call to action. The hero then goes into the underworld or another world, passing out of the world of normal existence into a world where the shadow can become real, a world where there are other forces that must be conquered. And when that's done, through the pure or positive intention of the hero or of the shaman, a boon or a gift or a healing, something can be brought back to your people, to the world, to make the world a better place, to heal your people, to return something that has been lost. Sometimes if you're working with just one individual, that could be a piece of their vital energy.
Yeah.
Soul retrieval, it could be something that has an object that's been lost. You can find out where an object has been that's been lost, or you could bring back a power animal, a guardian spirit, a healing spirit, medicine, spirit medicine to help heal somebody. And you know, the word shaman itself can tell a little bit about what it is. And the word shaman comes from the Tungusk people in Siberia, which modern shamanism is, as far as we know, and not just modern shamanism, actually shamanism as we understand it is traceable back to Siberia, which is a fact that most people don't realize. Although there may have been and probably were earlier forms of it going, I would guess, all the way back to Africa. It's one of the things that really connects all human cultures and is one of the practices that is, I would consider the birthright of humankind. So the word shaman means one who travels between the worlds, one who sees that in the dark, one who sees clearly, one who travels from world to world or has one foot in the real world or the phenomenological physical world and one foot in the spirit world or spirit worlds. The teachings of shamanism say that there are several different worlds. There's the middle world where we live. The middle world has its own levels. There's the lower world, which would be considered the elemental world, not an underworld, but a world where the nature spirits, rock spirits, animal spirits.
Now, could that have been misinterpreted through time as the one with the more elemental, the more darker, be the lower world?
Yeah, I would say misinterpretation is probably one of the most common things that humans do. You know, we take pure information and we misinterpret it often when we have to put it through the filter of trying to fit it into the religions that we want to believe in or the religions that we were raised in. Often we then misinterpret things based on that. But remember, our interpretations, our understandings, and you know, the decisions that we make and all that are only as good as the information that they're based on. So our understanding of shamanism then is usually skewed because we have more propaganda about shamanism than we do real information about shamanism. And the reason is because of the fact that shamanism was almost destroyed, similar to the Bardic tradition in Europe. It was almost destroyed because the shamanic way of life is not one that aims to control. It's not one that requires an individual to actually go to a shaman for spiritual information. Shamanism is an individual, personal path to direct revelation. We can all use shamanic practice to get information ourselves, to have our own spiritual experiences, to expand our own horizons, to expand our own consciousness. And the religions of the world, they want us to believe that we need them. We need to go through them. We need to go through their structure, their power system, in order to gain spiritual insight. And because of that, because shamanism aims to liberate, aims to free, allow people to think freely, to think for themselves, to gain their own spiritual understanding, it was a challenge. It was a challenge to the power structure that was becoming the predominant power structure in civilization. So because of that, it was attempted to destroy it, which failed. And now there's a revival, what Terence McKenna called an archaic revival, where we take ancient teachings from before civilization, from the time when we had a direct connection to nature, from a time when we had the ability to communicate with the earth spirit, with the earth mother, with earth herself directly, through not language, but through an understanding, a connection that is deeper than anything that we can really understand now.
Okay, yeah. So you had that's fascinating, and you had said, so there's the middle realm which we operate in, correct?
Right.
Then there's the lower, which could be elemental, beneath, and then there's the upper world, which you hadn't explained yet. So if you could just give us a little explanation on what the upper world consists of.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I'll relate it to the lower world. So the lower world, you have the animal spirits, you have a lot of the guardian spirits, you have the power animals, protecting spirits, rock spirits, stuff like that. The upper world is where you would go to find a teaching spirit, a kind of maybe a spirit guide, an angelic type being would be considered an upper world spirit. You would find the more advanced, more evolved, higher self type spirits there. So you go to the lower world for protection, for guidance on more life-based things, life meaning actual life, living creatures, healing life, stuff like that, healing trees, healing the earth. You go to the upper world for guidance, for teachers, for information or guidance on spiritual matters. Going up in the spirit, going down into the ground. So you can think of it in that way. The spirits in both realms are helpful. The spirits in the middle realm tend not to be as helpful, just because usually they're in the middle realm because they're lost. They would belong somewhere else, but they are lost for some reason. And for that reason, they usually require our help in guiding them to where they belong.
So that would be if I were to be out in existence and see an apparition. This would be in this belief structure. This would be just a soul that's kind of lost. It's wondering what to do next with, where to go, its new mission, if it's going to go down and become more grounded, or if it's going to go back up and return to a higher consciousness.
Potentially, yeah. Now, remember, each level of the worlds also has sublevels. So in the lower world, you have kind of more what you would consider maybe like aggregate spirits, like a bear spirit would be not an individual bear, but a spirit that represents bearhood or bareness. In the upper world, you would have much more individual spirits, spirits that are more like the spirit of a spirit guide, not spirit guideness, but an actual spirit guide or an actual angelic being, which has its own individual existence. It's not really clear where some of these lost spirits actually belong. I tend to look at it in a little bit more of a complex type of way, not so much that there is a lower, middle, and upper world in just this one world, but I see it more of a multiverse, where we have many layers of reality all on top of each other.
Multiple dimension theory, pretty much, right?
Yeah, alternate versus alternate realities, and the idea that life is eternal, but a constant recycling, makes me feel like maybe these spirits just need to be guided into their next stage of life, into the next stage of their existence. In which case, I'm not sure whether they go into the upper or the lower world. I think they may go into another middle world somewhere where they actually belong.
So we're all interconnected, and that's pretty much the truth, right?
Yeah, that's a central assumption of shamanism, not a metaphorical assumption, but an actual literal belief, a literal truth that everything is interconnected through consciousness and through physical reality. You know, we all breathe the same air. All of the atoms in our bodies were all cooked inside stars in the furnaces of stars millions, billions of years ago. And anything heavier than carbon or iron was created in the death of a star. So death creates life. When the star dies and explodes, it spreads those heavier elements throughout the universe, throughout the galaxy, and creates, seeds, further distant clouds, which then collapse into their own solar systems, their own stars. And now those planets that have coalesced out of that collapsing cloud have the elements on it for life. So maybe millions, billions of years later, life forms will evolve on those planets that are made out of atoms that were created in the death of a star billions of years before, maybe light years away. And that constant recycling and spreading of matter and energy is one way that all things are connected, but at an even deeper, more fundamental level, there's the consciousness that underlies it all. And the consciousness that underlies it all is what connects all living thinking. And I think also what we would normally think of non-thinking things or non-living things as stones and crystals. I deal with stone and crystal spirits in the lower world all the time, and so I believe that everything has consciousness, and
So you're saying that everything, even the rocks beneath our feet, the grain of sand, the molecules entering your lungs, it's all life.
Yeah, there's a consciousness to it all. Yeah, and that is the central belief of shamanism, is that all things are interconnected. Yeah.
Okay. Well, just we're gonna just go to this question real quick at Carly Cutie Cake. So why in our more free time, our free thinking time, Ian, isn't shamanism more common in this day and age with everything going on? Our progress into alternative medicine options such as acupuncture, hypnosis. What's the holdup?
Well, it is becoming more common, but just like in the universe, with energies and things like that, things change forms. As a hypnotherapist, we are modern day shamans in a lot of ways. A shaman is a master of trance. A shaman is an individual who can put himself or herself or another person into trance at will, into an altered state. And we hypnotherapists do that all the time. And so, we change things, we adapt them to modern culture. So in one sense, shamanism is a part of many people's lives in different ways. But also because of one thing that I already described of how shamanism was attacked and the attempt was to destroy shamanism, that kind of put a separation, a barrier between the modern culture and what a lot of people would consider primitive cultures, which really are not primitive. They're just connected to the earth. And you know, if you were to really compare our definition of primitive, you know, when we think of primitive, we think of warring, we think of fighting, or destructive, barbaric type of culture. In a lot of ways, you know, we are that way. We are the primitive culture. We just use technology to be primitive. We use technology to be barbaric. We, you know, spread violence throughout the world using our technology instead of using stones and sticks. But, you know, in a lot of ways, the reason why we've gone the direction that we've gone is because we've lost that connection with the shamanic tradition. We don't have that connection anymore in such a strong way as we used to. So because of that, we've destroyed the earth. We've damaged our oceans, our forests, our rivers, our lakes, and we've damaged each other. We've, you know, we've lost track of our responsibility to the earth. So the attempt is, the idea is to bring the archaic versions of shamanism and the ancient ways of doing things and integrate them into the way we do things now to heal the world, to heal each other, to form a stronger connection and a communication between the advanced technological societies and the non-advanced, non-technologically advanced societies, so that there can be a dialogue, and so there can be a sharing of the earth instead of a constant extraction of resources and a constant conflict between us and the people who live in nature.
Excellent. Yeah. So I know that, you know, we have the technology. You know, we've come into a new age in technology. Wouldn't you say that would be a forward progression in terms of connecting consciousnesses, connecting with the greater whole? Are we moving towards that direction, or are we moving away from the basic roots? Do we have to be connected physically instead of through a technology type machine or consciousness?
Yeah, I think you know, anything that connects people is good. In some ways, great. Anything can be used for good or evil. It all really depends on how we use it. Depends on whether or not we take responsibility for the gifts and the abilities that we have, and take responsibility to use them in a positive way. I think stuff like this, like Blab, like what we're doing right now, is an excellent way to link people together, to share information. We could create a shamanic community across the planet now using this type of technology. So yeah, it is a progression forward, and the way you use it will determine, you know, whether it was a good thing or not. And there's really, you know, there's really no way to tell until it's had enough time to have an effect on the world. But I think that starting it off just like this, in discussion groups and sharing ideas and allowing people to learn things that they haven't known before, and to expand their minds, to expand our minds, to connect, that's a positive thing. So yeah, the technology can enhance the culture. It can enhance our ability to share things that can help people. You know, it used to be that all therapy was done in person. Now we do a lot of therapy. We do a lot of hypnotherapy,
via Skype,
shamanic practice through the internet, over the phone. And that gives us the ability to heal people and to help people heal anywhere in the world, as long as they have the connection. And we're more and more, we're finding that that technology is spreading into places that previously did not have internet access. And it's starting to get to the point where internet access is going to be considered a fundamental human right. And I think that would be a major step forward, making that a fundamental human right, to have access to the internet, because that gives everybody access to information. And access to information is what frees us from the tendency to be controlled by people who want to be able to control what information we have access to.
That's fascinating, Ian, really. So So it's just kind of interesting to see where we're going, where we're heading. But for those of you just joining us, we're sitting down. We're talking about shamanism with certified hypnotherapist, master imagery facilitator, and shamanic practitioner Ian Anderson. He is discussing about shamanism, what it is, his own journey. And before we go in, we have a couple of questions. Actually, we have one from Ludmila. We are going to get to that here in just a second. We've briefly discussed shamanism, what it is, but actually, Ian, how does one become a shaman? Now, you've discussed your own journey, but if I were to walk out the door and I'd want to become a shaman, how would I go about the process?
Okay. Well, first of all, the label shamanism is really a meaningless label if we put it on ourselves. It's a shaman is not a shaman because they call themselves a shaman. The shaman is a shaman because they use shamanic techniques to create an effect in the world, to journey, to bring back information, to bring back healing. But shamanic initiation can take form and can take many forms. I discussed a little bit in the beginning shamanic initiation through dreams. Much of my shamanic initiation came in the form of dream initiation, and also in the form of altered states, being contacted by spiritual intelligences in altered states, such as the psychedelic experience.
Or channeling, right?
Channeling is one way. Any way we communicate, anytime we're communicating with spirits, anytime we're seeing anything with our eyes closed or seeing something in the dark that is imparting wisdom or giving us power, that is a type of channeling experience where we're channeling something from another realm through us. So there's initiation through near-death experience. That's really common. There's the survival of, and these are ways that a shaman can be identified at a young age. Sometimes the survival of an illness that almost kills you but doesn't kill you, and after you come back from that near-death experience, often you have a certain psychic gifts or abilities that you didn't have before. There's the ability to inherit the shamanic power or the ability to heal, and it can be handed down to you, or it can run in kind of family lines. But in those cases, that's just the beginning. That's the initiation. Initiation means like the start. It's the initial event that sets you apart as a shaman. There's apprenticeship. You can actually be chosen by another shaman to be trained, to be initiated into the tradition, to start your own process and to take the wisdom from the elders into yourself and then share it with others. And then there's the recognition by your community. Your community can identify you as a shaman for, say, a spontaneous healing event that you performed on somebody or yourself. Or they may see that you, from a young age, have had many attributes that a shaman would have in their culture, and you can be chosen by spirit. You can be selected by the spirits to be a shaman, to begin the initiation process. And really, like I said, that's just the beginning. The learning process never ends. We're always becoming better shamans. We're always learning more. There's always more to learn. There's always more to do. There's always more healing that can take place. The learning process literally never ends. The most important thing is that you have a desire to be of service and to always find a way to help, always find a way to heal,
to spread that healing in the world, right?
Yeah, that's the most important thing. That you have that desire, that intention to do it, because a shaman is an activist. Not so much a mystic, an activist who is practical. They want to see real results, and it doesn't matter how you do it, as long as your intention is pure. It doesn't matter what techniques you're using, as long as the techniques work. The whole idea is to liberate people and to alleviate suffering and ignorance. That's really what it's all about. The whole idea is to have an effect, have a real effect that people can see, that people can feel in their lives.
It's fascinating. So at Cali Fly Baby, if you'd like to come in, we'd more than welcome you into the discussion, and like to ask you personally about your own study as we take a break real quick from Mr. Anderson, and your new study in Andean shamanism. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So, what is your type of shamanism? I know you've probably been listening most to Blab to Mr. Anderson here. So, tell us a little bit about how what we can expect from Andean shamanism.
Well, I would definitely not presume to be an expert in Andean shamanism. Definitely, I'm a student. I'm just learning. I'm in the beginning, stages of it. So, I definitely wouldn't, feel qualified to go through, everything about it, but I was definitely called to it. I was called to learn about shamanism. It was becoming a passion of mine to learn about it. And I ran into a shaman in a most unusual place. I was in a health food store, and I'd been watching a lot of ayahuasca documentaries and, just different things like that. And I'd come through a bunch of health problems. I almost died with meningitis, about 10 years before that. Had a lot of health problems. I had deconverted from Christianity. My life was becoming, turned upside down, basically. And I was in a health food store, and the topic of ayahuasca came up with the owner of the store. And he goes, "Oh, funny you should mention that. There's a shaman that lives right here. In fact, I've had workshops at her house. I've taught workshops at her house about different vitamins and minerals and things like that." And not 2 minutes later, she walks in the door of the health food store. Oh, here she is, And so we meet, and she's just like this 80-year-old lady, just this badass, 80-year-old lady that's studied.
We all know one, right?
Exactly. I mean, if you look at her, you would just think she's somebody's aunt or grandmother, really. But, she's got Jaguar jewelry on and, some really cool stuff. And I started studying with her. And it was just a great, moment. She's studied under Alberto Villoldo. She's studied under, many of the people of the Q'ero tradition in the Andean mountains. So they're the Q'ero mystics. And so that's her lineage. And of course, she studied many other different, healing modalities. And this is just one thing, over her lifetime, that she's been doing. But I was led straight into it. There's no doubt about Spirit led me right to her,
Yeah, that's actually fascinating. I mean,
you can't deny
that
that.
it can be passed down, or it can just be an experience where you actually have an interaction with another being or human, and it just kind of comes into your own belief system, your own life path. It's fascinating.
Well, I had been praying, if you will, for a new community. I came out of being an evangelical Christian for 20 years. I went through a long, I would call it, deconversion process, very intellectual, very analytical deconversion process. And it was huge for me to come out of that. And then I just needed a new community. And, when I began to open my mind into shamanism, I was led straight to my new community. And I thought I was going to have to go clear across the world or something, to learn about it. And it was literally 15 to 20 minutes away from my house. There was just this awesome lady with an awesome school with wonderful people, my students are not my students, but the students that are in the class range from professors of anthropology and history, to nurses, doctors, yoga teachers, music teachers, just a diverse group of wonderful people that I just can ask for a better community, to be a part of. And it just really answered everything that, you know, that I needed. And, you know, in my own healing journey, it's really helped me a lot transform and, you know, shed some of the old story, you know, and transform into, you know, who I'm becoming now. And I'm in the middle of a divorce. And, you know, it's just, you know, shedding those things that no longer serve you as you're healing. So I've found it to be very, very helpful to me. And as an empath, it really, the tools and the initiations that I've gotten through this lineage have helped me strengthen my boundaries, you know, my energetic boundaries that were shattered from being an empath, you know, an emotional empath, which if you're not one, you don't know what it's like, you know, to just feel everyone's crap.
I'd have
all
to
the
say
time.
I can totally totally agree with that on that fact too. I have definitely experienced that almost every day. You actually feel the world. There's very kinesthetic connection that we have with the world and the beings around us, the energy, and you know, I can definitely relate to that. So Ian, so yeah, would you say this is more of an initiation or a recognition by another shaman, or like maybe a divine intervention?
Well, you know, she talked about synchronicity. That's something that I wanted to bring into the topic or into the discussion, because synchronicity is the way the universe, the way spirit lets us know that we are on the right track, that we're getting onto our path. So when these synchronicities happen, we pay attention to that, and if we follow the path of those synchronicities, we end up on our path, and our true path is where things then start to become very easy. Things start to fall into place, and it's almost like we're not struggling anymore to make things happen. We're not struggling anymore to get through life because we're on our path. When you're not on your path, it's like having to cut your way through the jungle, like hacking your way through the jungle with a machete. When you are on your path, synchronicity just lays the bricks down in front of you, so you can just walk right over them. So it sounds like spirit kind of called her into it based on her intention and her desire. And obviously, as an empath, there's a natural ability already there, and that natural ability, you know, that's part of that. That could have been something that she got during the survival of the illness that you said you had. It may, you know, that, like I said, the survival of an illness is one of the ways that we be identified as a shaman, or that we can pick up certain shamanic power. So it sounds like a combination of several different things going on. But I would say, no mistake, the initiation process has begun. Yeah.
Okay, so in your own two experiences, it is said that shamans get into a nice state, a state of trance, a state of connection to the universe. Now we have a question from Sarap. Sarap asks, are chemicals used to get into state? And if we can briefly talk about shamanistic use of different elements and herbs and chemicals to help their practice.
Yeah, you know, in our modern culture, that's usually the first way that a person is exposed to the shamanic state of consciousness. And we separate our altered states, or our states of consciousness, from the normal state of consciousness, from the shamanic state of consciousness, which can be induced in many ways. There's drumming, there's rattling, there's, you know, the whistle or the flute, or dancing, or the ordeal, where you put yourself through punishments in order to induce the altered state. But one of the most effective, if not the most effective and most dependable way of creating an altered state of consciousness, is by ingesting or absorbing in some way the alkaloids or chemicals produced in certain plants, whether it be a fungus or a vine or a tree bark or a cactus. Each different plant produces its own kind of cocktail that allows us to connect to the spirit matrix of that plant, the spirit matrix of the earth. All things are connected. So, you know, when we find that a certain plant creates a certain experience or a certain shift, a bifurcation in our consciousness, the assumption is that it does that for a reason. We all evolved together. We evolved the planet with these plants. These plants evolved with us with some sort of synergistic connection, some symbiotic connection between us that allows us to bring the consciousness of that plant into our body and to merge the two, which allows us then to drop into the matrix of the earth or into that plant consciousness.
So almost channel that force energy, and
yeah,
to be able to live and heal through it.
Exactly, and it has to be done responsibly. It has to be done carefully. I would not recommend just going out there and you know, ingesting things to see what would happen. It is important that you do things with the proper intention and responsibly, because otherwise you'll end up just getting wasted or getting messed up. You could end up, you know, in trouble. You can end up creating some pretty bad things for yourself. It's important that if you don't have a lot of experience with it, that you have a shamanic practitioner as a guide to guide you through the experience. A shaman is trained in focusing their intention and using their intention to guide the process and to create the end result, you know, to go into these states for a reason. There's a purpose behind it. There's a question behind every journey, a purpose behind every journey, and it's done to bring back a result. So, you know, when you ingest these plants, you do it with the intention in mind. And one way that you can focus your intention, and one way that you can get the process started off right, is to call in the spirits before you do it. To call in the spirits to bless the plants, to bless the water you're cooking them in, if you're cooking them, to grow them yourself, or to get them from someone who grows them themselves in a shamanic state of mind and does it with the reverence respect that it deserves. And if not, then if you don't grow them yourselves, then harvest them yourselves in nature. Make sure you know what you're doing. You know, it's not something that I recommend just going out and doing. Definitely not. You can get the wrong plants, you can get the wrong mushrooms, you can end up killing yourself or making yourself really sick. So that being said, yes, they are very powerful. They're the most dependable and most effective way of getting into a deep shamanic trance. But the hallucinogenic state is not in itself a shamanic trance. You use the hallucinogenic state and the altered state of consciousness created by the plants in combination with the induction of the trance state, which magnifies the trance state. It opens your consciousness into a deeper trance state and connects you to the matrix of the consciousness of the universe in a deeper way. So if we could just take a minute, I can show you.
Yeah, could you give us an example of that? That would be great.
Yeah. So if everyone just takes a second, you know, just maybe close your eyes for a minute, take a couple of deep breaths. Let yourself become present. Let yourself connect to whatever the highest consciousness, the highest spirit that you can think of, that you can recognize in the universe, whatever it is. Take a moment and just focus your consciousness on the gratitude that you have for your life, for the existence of life, the interconnectedness of all things, for the people, the animals, everything you have in your life that you love for, and really focus on the unconditional love that you have in your heart for all life. Or if you have trouble focusing on that unconditional love, focus on the person or the animal that you do have unconditional love for, and let yourself feel that unconditional love, because that unconditional love is the love that Spirit has for us. The love that caused Spirit and the creator, the creative force in the universe, to create this reality. And while you ponder that mystery and the interconnectedness of all things, I'm going to call in the spirits to be with us here now. So that's a short version of the calling in of the spirits. We use our intention with the sound, the rattle, the whistle, which draws the attention of the spirits. Our intention pulls them in. Our intention, our desire to form a connection with them is what starts that connection, which is what allows that connection to start to form. The rattle itself, or the drum, or the whistle, the flute, is the tool that causes the shift inside our brain and inside our mind and our brainwave patterns to begin to take place. Studies have been done that have shown that it only really takes a couple seconds of the correct rhythm to allow the brainwave pattern to latch on to and train with the rhythm that's coming through the drum or that's coming through the rattle. That initial step right there, that beginning of that ceremony to call on the spirits, would be done in the beginning of any journey, in the beginning of any ceremony, to make sure that we pay the respect and the gratitude ahead of time before the ceremony takes place, so that the spirits have the knowledge that we have the intention and the desire to connect with them. These spirits like to be, they want to be acknowledged. They want to know that we appreciate and desire their guidance. And when we do that, when we put that intention out there and then use the whistle, the rattle to call them in, that brings their presence in so that we can then form the connection to get the gift of power from them. We receive power from them. We give our gratitude to them in return. And that power, gratitude, interaction is the kind of reason for our, or the source of our ability to heal. We get the power, and we use that power to heal and to create change. Yeah, I'm not hearing you.
So you've
Can
just
you hear
given
me?
us a yeah, there we go. So we just given us a great example of the calling in of the spirits, and you know, the initial process of getting into your own shaman state. But how can the shamanistic states, some of the states, be induced? We know that they can be induced by ingestion of different plants and herbs, as we discussed, but also how else, Ian?
This is a drum here. This drum produces a sound that has its main bassy, or its main frequency that it puts out, but there are also undertones and overtones that come through as well. And we use the energy from the drum, from the sound that it makes, to project us into the altered states. Now, the important thing that I want to point out is that gateway to the other worlds is in our mind. The gateway is our brain. One thing that that the seat of visionary experience is in the brain that produces natural DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which is one of the most powerful plant-based chemicals for psychedelic experience, for projecting ourselves into altered states. But we use the drum to cause a shift in the brain wave pattern, in the consciousness. It's a biological shift and a spiritual shift. The biological shift in the brainwave pattern allows our consciousness to latch on to that and change its normal function from out of normal consciousness into the altered state. The drum is one of the most common ways. It's called sonic driving. About 90% of all shamanic cultures use the drum. Mm-hmm. The ones that don't use the drum use a rattle, stamping, dancing. There's like I said, there's the ordeals where, which is really common in cultures where in cultures where there are no psychedelic plants available, they will use ordeal substances, ordeal plants, which cause a painful, extremely painful and sickening experience. Not a hallucinogenic experience, but an experience that's so painful and so terrible that it projects us into an altered state also. And this is a drum beater, not a wand. So this is something that you would then, you'd beat the drum with like this. And I'll beat the drum so you can hear the sound that it makes. So that's this drum. It's kind of a more high-pitched sound. That drum is tunable with heat. So you could put it in front of a fire to make a stronger, higher-pitched sound, or you could put it in maybe a little bit moister of a room, and it would loosen the skin a little bit on the drum. Here's a deeper drum. It has a much more resonant sound, and the two together create a very powerful interplay of frequencies. Anywhere from about 60 to about 180 beats per minute is a good enough rhythm. A steady rhythm like that is a good enough rhythm to be able to project you into a very deep state of trance. Well, I practice something that I call hypno-shamanism, where I combine my hypnotherapy practice, the ability to put myself or other people into trance using hypnosis, with shamanic practice, which I feel greatly enhances the power of the practice. Not only does it enhance the power of the practice, but it enhances the effect that it has on the individual I'm practicing for, that I'm doing it for, because it makes them more open to receiving the healing. It makes them more open to receiving positivity, to receiving wisdom, to receiving guidance, because it creates a receptive state in their mind. Hypnosis is a state of receptivity, So I use it to create that receptive state, and then to enhance the trance using shamanic practice. So yeah, there's sonic driving. One of the most important types of shamanic induction is the vision quest. That would be, yeah. I keep losing your connection.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you about the vision quest there.
Yeah, yeah. The vision quest is really great. You know, it combines many of the different factors, because a vision quest would normally be combined with fasting, possibly psychedelic or psychotropic plants. Extended isolation is definitely one of the important factors, because with extended isolation, you don't have a distraction of communicating with other people, of having other people draw you off of your intention. And then you have the fact that you can really go out there and drum for yourself. You can do your breath work. You can combine them all in a state where you have several days by yourself out in nature at a sacred spot. You would go into a sacred place in nature, maybe a waterfall, something like that, something where the energy is strong. And your intention would be to go with the desire to get a vision, to get an answer, to get some information, to move you forward, to move you further along into your shamanic life.
Have you been on a vision quest? You're in your own experience as a shaman practitioner?
Yes, years ago, before I had my hypnotherapy practice, I would do it maybe twice a year, and it would be something that I would plan for, for at least a couple months, maybe a few months. But I would go, depending on where I was. Sometimes I would go to a particular beach, a place where I could be alone, where I would know that there wouldn't be, a lot of people coming and going during the day. Or I would go into the desert safely, knowing that I would be able to get out if I needed to. But there have been times when I've gone off by myself or with maybe one other person for several days, and spent several days in shamanic psychedelic trance. It goes in waves. There are times when it cools off and you come back into ordinary reality for a little bit, and then you leave again. And that was a central part of my life for a long time. Those are some of the most empowering experiences that I ever had. And those were the times that, and we'll talk about this much more in future events, I'm sure, but those were the times when I had the most undeniable connections with a non-human intelligence, with a non-human the spiritual force and communication. Yeah.
That's amazing. We also did have another question from a viewer who kind of got on our Blab a little late, and he was just referencing, is there a certification process to become a shaman? It's pretty much your own spiritual journey, your own rite of passage. There are several ways that you can be initiated through near-death experiences. We had talked about dreams, surviving serious illnesses, inheritance, apprenticeship, finding a shaman and being an apprentice to that shaman to learn the ways of being a healer in between worlds, and recognition by a shaman. Maybe a shaman has reached out to you without even any kind of warning, and just said, hey, have you ever experienced a path as a healer? So there are several different ways that you can be initiated into the world of shaman, but it's a way of your own self journey that I believe, a way of just helping and healing others. Because isn't that the point, to just heal the world, right, Ian?
Right. And yeah, there are because shamanism is becoming a more important part of our life in modern culture. There are some schools that have opened. I'm aware of at least one in LA County, but there are a couple of different places There's the Venus Rising Institute, I believe, in North Carolina, in the Brown Mountain. They're ran by a woman named Venus, or Linda Starwolf, I think is her name. She wrote a book on shamanic breath work. Her institute does train people in shamanic breath work and the initiatory process. There's also the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. They have certification courses in shamanism. However, like Robert said, it is an individual path. Getting a certification does not make you a shaman. Not getting a certification does not mean you're not a shaman. A shaman is recognized as a shaman by the people who they do shamanic work for. And if you create a change, a shift in people, if you create a better experience, a better life for those people, then that means that you're a shaman. So just to let you know, I have about 20% life left on my battery. So if we need to, I can take a second and plug my phone in.
All right, yeah, that's great. So we're just gonna open it up to some questions from our viewers. If anybody has any questions regarding shamanism, we'd love to take the time to recap. I am the moderator of this discussion. I am Robert E. Young III. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, and U.S. military veteran. I join Ian Anderson today in bringing you this definite, interesting topic on shamanism, what it is, how it's used, how one would go about that journey. We've covered it all. We've gotten to this point, and now we open it up for questions. And we have a question: are there Sha women? Shaman. Shaman is a non-gender specific term. It is a path of the soul, as I've picked up from it, my own belief, that it's sort of just as if a psychologist or a hypnotherapist. It's a non-gender specific path of the soul. It's a path of the soul, one interesting and enlightening path. Michael Dove, at Michael_Dove, he asked, is this a good way to make money?
Well, you know, I make money doing it. It is a way to make money. You see, in our culture, there's kind of a stigma against people who make money doing something good. You know, people who are healers, who do things good for people, are expected to do it for free. I don't agree with that. I think that for one, if somebody is investing money into your or anything, you know, I accept trade services, but if somebody is willing to invest into your service, that means that they're invested in their healing. They're more involved. They're more willing to and more ready to take what you do and accept it because they've actually put an investment into it. So I totally disagree with the stigma against people making money for doing shamanic practice and for doing healing and stuff like that. It is a way to make money. It is a way, especially if you're training other people, if you are helping to get the practice out there to expand people's minds, to do it with a good intention, not just to make money, but to make a living helping people, then, you know, out of that intention, the money will come and you'll be able to make a living out of doing it. I make a living as a shaman, but I also make a living as a hypnotherapist, and the two together allow me to make a pretty good living. My fees are the same as a shaman. My fee is the same as a hypnotherapist because it's hypno-shamanism. It's all combined. I do just hypnosis and hypnotherapy by itself. I do shamanism by itself, but when I'm doing shamanism, it's usually incorporating hypnotherapy with it as well. And
I think you know, we have a couple more questions here. What is the average price for a session? Now it just depends. You know, it isn't you're going to see a shaman. This shaman could be a generalized thing. It could be a broad spectrum. It could be a shaman who just receives messages, puts them into daily affirmations on the internet, to a shaman who actually is a hypnotherapist like yourself, that helps people find their true life's paths, their soul's quest, There's also shamans that actually go in and deal with the energy. So there are different levels and different areas that one could be a shaman. It's more of a general, broad scope, is it not?
Right. Yeah. And by the way, yeah, the word shaman is not shaman. It's shaman, and a female shaman would be a shamaness. But that man at the end of the word does not imply maleness. Just to address that other first question. But yeah, shamanic practice is, there is a wide spectrum. I can talk a little bit about what path my shamanic practice has taken generally. As a healer and a hypnotherapist, I deal with consciousness, and consciousness being the underlying cause, or an error in consciousness, or the energetic, an error in the energetic structure causes sickness, illness, negative experiences in life. And one of my main areas of expertise in shamanism is the removal of spiritual attack, the removal of negative parasitic entities from people's energy fields, from their homes, what we would call in our culture more of a paranormal type thing, although shamanism generally is kind of a paranormal type of practice. Although I don't use the word paranormal so much. I would say super physical, maybe, or super normal. It's all nature. But people have come to me with the need to have something negative, some negative force, a parasitic spirit of some kind, removed from their home, removed from their body, removed from their life in general, because they somehow became attached to this person's energy field. One of there are some symptoms of having a spirit attached to you. You could consider it in a sense kind of like an exorcism, and it's not always an exorcism from a person. It's a holistic type of approach. The first thing you do is you go in and you claim sacred space. Sacred space can be anything, anywhere you go, anywhere you are. It can be the land, your house. That's the first thing that we do. The first intention is to claim sacred space. We don't go in with the intention to communicate to open up communication with the spirit. I may communicate to it, but I don't communicate with it. I don't give it the option to try and manipulate me. The whole intention, the whole feel when I go into a house or a piece of land or whatever to clear out these negative entities, I go in with the feeling, I radiate the mentality that this is going to happen. You're going to go. There's no option about it. And once you're gone, you're not coming back. I go in with compassion for these spirits. I give them a gift of my energy, of my unconditional love for all living and existing conscious beings. But I give them that energy with the intention that they will use it to then go where they belong, to go out of the realm where they are acting as a parasite, to where they belong, where they can reconnect with source. The reason why these negative spirits attach to people and use them for their energy is because they're not where they belong. Mm-hmm. And when they're not where they belong, they're not connected to source like we are, to a source of life force energy, to a source of consciousness. So then they feed on our energy. And oftentimes they feed on negative energy. They create negative experiences. They create conflict. They create addictions. They create sicknesses. They break up families. They experience extreme emotions because they don't have bodies. They're disembodied consciousness. And
so what in working with spirits, what would be something that is what are some important things to consider right then?
Yeah, spiritual protection. You have to protect yourself. You need to know how to claim sacred space and to hold sacred space, to hold that intention. Sacred space can be created in many different ways. You can use incense. You can use the drum. You can use the rattle. You can use many different things. You could spin around in circles and clap your hands if you wanted to. It really doesn't make a difference as long as the intention is to create sacred space and to hold it. And then once that's done, you protect yourself using visualization, using the again, intention, and using the spiritual allies, the guardian spirits that you make contact with in your journeys. Okay, so after you do that, then what I would do is I would go through the house and I would bless and cleanse each room or each part of the land individually in a very methodical way. You can't just go in and burn sage and wave it around. You start at one, you start at the furthest back part of the house, all windows closed, and you move everything forward. If you think, I think of it when I'm visualizing it as like a syringe. When you push the plunger down, you force everything out through the tip. When you're feeding a little baby kitten, you know, you put the thing in its mouth and you push the milk down, the plunger down, you push the milk into its mouth. That's what I visualize, pushing this negative space out, this negative energy out. So I start at the furthest back, windows closed in every room, push it out the door. Do every room, pushing the negative energy into the hallway. Then you push it down into the entryway of the house. If you're doing 2 floors, you do the top floor, then the bottom floor, sealing each room with your intention, sealing each room with a blessing, and then you force it out the front door and you close the front door. Then I do a journey where I go and I find my spirit allies, the spirits that I work with, in order to bring in the force of protection. So the ones that I work with in the lower world, these guardian spirits, are my crystal spirits. Each one is a different color of the rainbow. There's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, and they form a column of a crystal spirit column through the center of the house. That column, that each color together forms a shield of white light around the property. Okay, that shield makes it so that once I've banished these negative spirits from the home, from the bodies of the people that I'm working with, from their, you know, the attic, the basement with crawl space, whatever it is, you have to get every space, the closets, everything. I do every single drawer in the kitchen, every drawer, every dresser drawer, every cabinet, everything.
I have a quick question. I've heard this. You've explained it to me before. Actually, you've even worked with some of the people that I know. What is with the water? Tell me about the water. What's important about the water in the house?
Okay, so are you talking about the water that we use to collect negative energy?
Yes.
Okay. Well, water is a very important element or molecule. It actually is able to hold intention really, really well, and it's able to hold energy. It's able to absorb energy.
There was an experiment too, a couple of years ago, right? With the 3 vials of rice, and the school kids would walk by each vial, and they would say negative things, positive things, and give just a medium comment. And on these 3 vials, the water and the chemistry actually started to change.
Yeah, they've done it with water and rice. They've done it with water and plants. It's been done with just pure water and ice crystals. It's been done with computer chips. It's been done with all kinds of things. And basically, what's been discovered, and if you want to look up this work, Dr. William Tiller is one of the guys who has done this work. Is that anything can be imprinted with intention. So what we do is we use water in a clear container, like a clear glass container, as a means of absorbing any negative energy in the house, which then you flush it down the toilet every day and you refill it with new water. And the reason is that water not only conducts electricity and is able to be imprinted with consciousness, but you can also ground it. Any of that negative energy is grounded the second you pour it into the toilet and flush it down the toilet, because of its electrical nature, because of its ability to conduct electricity. So the question that we get a lot is, you know, do we really want to be putting all this negative energy out into the world? You know, if you're just moving it from one place to the next, what is that really doing? Are you making another place more negative because you're flushing that negative energy down the toilet? But no, the actual answer is that the universe can balance anything. The universe will balance all energies, no matter how negative. It's all about the intention that you work with. So
so you were saying that you can drop it down the toilet, or you can take it off your property, Because I've heard of them, people doing that too. They take it off their property so that there's no way that if there was collected negative energy inside that vial, it would somehow get trapped in the piping. Now, we had another question with pets. If you have pets in the house, you have an open container, and you're absorbing this negative energy after you do a ritual, say a house clearing. Now, could that be in a sealed container, or does it have to be an open top?
It could be in a sealed container, or you could also put it up where the pets can't get to it. But yeah, it can be in a sealed container. This energy can travel through. This energy can travel through solid walls. It can travel through glass. The idea is it gets trapped in the water itself, not the container. And it is the intention that is so important, because this life force, energy, consciousness, all this stuff, it responds to intention. It goes where we tell it to go. It does what we tell it to do through visualization and intention. So you can literally program your intention into objects, into water, into anything. So yeah, you use it to set the intention, and then to let the object do its work by putting your intention out into the room around you.
Okay, so in your own practice of a shaman practitioner, who and what services do you offer the most?
I do land and property clearings. I do healing, shamanic healing of pets, of people. Mostly the clearing of negative energy and entities out of homes tends to be kind of an all-inclusive type thing. It's an individualized prescription for each situation. So it's a several hour long process that has to do with blessings and with certain objects and gifts from spirit, bringing in the allies, bringing in my spirit workers and the spirits that I work with to come in and create this certain result. So that's what I do. I do healings. I do removal, extractions of negative spiritual connections. I do power animal journeys, guardian spirit journeys. I do divination. There's 3 different types of shamanic practice. There's healing, there's divination, and empowerment. So I can do healing. I can do divination, which is how I work with a person to answer their questions, to communicate with spirit and nature and the world around them to get answers to the questions that they have. And then I can also channel shamanic power through myself and into them to help empower them to heal themselves, and to make it so that once I'm gone, so that once the ceremony is over, things don't return to how they were before. Nice. So that the effect is lasting.
That's amazing. And we do have another one, back to the water. Now, Science Pete says, if the water evaporates in your ritual, does the energy get released into the air of the house as water vapor, or do you have to worry about that? Do you have to control it?
It can. It's a daily thing. So you get that water every day. You take it out and you flush it, or you get it off the property and dump it down a drain. You don't want to let it sit there to be released again. You want to leave it in the open so that it can absorb the negativity. Then you flush it. You want to do it every day so that you don't leave it there with the opportunity for that stuff to get released again.
Excellent. So we're about
question. I can hear
okay.
you. I'm just checking my plugs.
All right, we got a couple of minutes here left. So are there any limitations, Ian, to what a shaman can accomplish?
The only limitations that we have are the limitations that we put on ourselves. In reality, there really are no limitations, because we are not, when we're working in the shamanic realm, we're not limited by the laws of physics. We're limited only by our own beliefs and by our own limitations. So when we go into these other realms, we do it so that we can go beyond the limitations that we experience in the middle world, in the normal physical world that we live in. And we go into a reality where the things that we want exist, and then we bring those things back to us in this reality. So there really are no limitations to what can be accomplished, at least as far as I've experienced. I've experienced some really unbelievable changes. And just for one, a very personal example is my cat Pickles. I have X-rays of his bladder stone from 6-7 months ago when I took him into the vet because he was urinating blood, and they told me that it was going to be a $3,000 or $4,000 surgery. So I wanted to use everything that I could to try and help him because he was in a lot of pain, and it wasn't very fefeasible to immediately drop $4,000 on a surgery.
Exactly.
So
really pricey.
yeah, it's expensive, and you know what? It's just alternative ways may be better in certain situations. And I wanted to see what I could do to, if I couldn't heal him completely, to at least alleviate some of the pain until we could get it done.
Exactly.
But you don't just want to go and put your companion under the knife and have him sliced open and go through all that for something that might be fixable another way. So I threw everything I could at the situation. I did journeys. I journeyed with my wife, and we brought him back his own power animal, and we brought him back a healing ally for him to help him heal. The spirit that I brought back looked like, in my vision, looked like a human with the wings and head of an eagle. And when I brought that spirit back, it wrapped its wings around the back part of my cat and held itself there and delivered its bird spirit medicine, whatever healing energy it had. It delivered that to him. And then I used my own practice of focusing my own energy, my own intention through my body and into the area of his bladder. And less than 2 weeks later, not only is he, and this was a while ago. It's not 2 weeks later now.
Now this is the cat here, right? This is the cat.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. Yeah, that's Pickles. So he's not only not urinating blood anymore, but he's entirely comfortable back to how he was before, and there is no bladder stone. There's no bladder stone on X-rays anymore. It fully was dissolved. And what I did was I used the energy to pull it through my hands and to beat that energy down on the bladder stone to break it up, boom, 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 like that, and really focused it in, and used my other hand to reflect the energy back like this. So I focused it and I bounced it through his bladder to break the stone up. Can you focus a little bit more on him so everyone can see
trying.
it? Getting the space between you. There he is. Hey, buddy.
He's a fluffy one.
So, yeah, that's Pickles, and he he's back to normal. He's back to full health now because of it. Another way that I know that this stuff is working is directly from the people that I work with. The results that I believe are real results. I believe they're real because the people who I work with tell me that they're real. They tell me that after we did the ceremony, that a shift took place and that it stayed better, that there are no more negative spirits. They're not seeing ghosts in their house anymore. They're not seeing floating disembodied heads or experiencing nightmares in their sleep or waking up unable to move. And they're not in fear and in terror anymore in their homes. Their relationships are healing. They're able to get back to their life, and they're not having incredibly bad luck. They're able to get back to their life the way it was before this crap started to happen. And that's what it's all about: removing ignorance and alleviating suffering. And if you can do that, then you've done something good.
Exactly. You've made a difference in your own way. Exactly.
Yes, that technique will work on humans. And remember, it's the intention and the focusing of your energy. So it takes practice. You want to practice it. You want to feel it. You want to use your intention, your visualization, all the power that you have. You want to communicate with the spirits. You want to go down into the spirit, into the lower world, up into the upper world. And let me explain a little bit about how that's done, okay? Because inducing a shamanic state of consciousness is not all that it takes. Okay, you have to put yourself into the trance, into the shamanic state of consciousness, and then you go into the lower world by finding an opening in the earth. I use a sacred spring that's at the base of a temple called Tanah Lot that I visited in Bali a couple of years ago. And this sacred spring is a place where I felt a very powerful connection to the earth and to spirit. So I use that spring as my way to descend into the lower world. Okay. When I use that spring to descend into the lower world, I use that spring to get back up into the middle world. To get up into the upper world, you can use a tree. I use the world tree as my way of ascending to the upper world. You can use a mountain. You can use a volcano. You can use any way that you can think of. You could use a bird. You could get on the back of a giant eagle and fly your way up. But the idea is that you want to find a way that works for you and use that way every time.
Excellent. So we're running a little bit low on time here, but you've told us a fascinating story of your own personal journey with shamanism. You've explained about, you know, what it is, how it's perceived in our existence, in the existence of the different dimensions. It's been a fascinating story, and I thank you for coming on and sharing your tale today, especially bringing on your wonderful cat there, who's a complete success in living the life that he needs to live. And I actually do have a cat that I'm probably going to call you. I'm going to have you come check out a cat,
I'd be happy.
A cat named Halo, and see if you can maybe see if he needs some healing. We've tried everything from Reiki to energy healing, and I think that might just be the perfect fit. So I thank you again, Ian. But if you had the opportunity to say something to the world, what would you have to say?
Well, you know, what I'd really want to say would be directed to the young people in the world, the people who still have the ability to direct their own destiny and to decide what path this world is going to take, because they're going to inherit the planet from the people who are living now and the people down the line who haven't even existed yet or aren't born yet. Those are the people I'd like to talk to. And to those people, I'd like to say that you have the power to create any experience that you want. There are forces in this world that don't have your best interest in mind. There are forces in this world that would like to turn you into a mindless consumer. I say, take the power back yourself, decide for yourself what your life is going to be, journey for your friends, invite your friends to journey for you. Enter into a fascinating world of exploring consciousness. There's nothing more interesting and nothing more empowering. And heal the earth so that when you leave the earth to the people who are coming after you, you leave it in a better condition than it was in when you were here. Because the earth is all we have. We can use it, but we don't own it. Just like shamanic power, we can use it, but we don't own it. Have respect, have love, and share that respect and love with everyone around you.
Those are words from a wise one, a wise man, and a wise shaman and hypnotherapist. Ian Anderson, I thank you, certified hypnotherapist, shamanistic practitioner, and certified master imagery facilitator. My name is Robert Young III. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, U.S. military veteran, and we thank you for being a part of this Blab today. Until next time, namaste.
Thank you, everybody.